If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by our in-house CIA operative, Jeff MD, also author extraordinary. You can see his books behind him. Good to see you, Jeff.
Good to see you too. Good to be seen.
I think I told you this one before. Keith Richards came out for the second set of a Rolling Stones concert in New York, one of the theaters there years ago, and he looked like death warmed over, and he's holding a cigarette in his hands like this, and the ash is hanging off, and he comes out, he says, "It's good to see you." And he starts laughing. He goes, "Actually, it's good to see anybody." So, all right, before we jump into top news headlines, we got a couple breaking news stories to cover ever so quickly. First one, Tulsi Gabbard revokes security clearances of Biden officials and signers of Hunter Biden laptop letters. So y'all probably remember when President Trump said, we're going to take away the security clearance of these 51 people who lied to you, the American people. I assume that it just happened at that particular point in time, but apparently that's a function of the job of being DNI. So she had to look after it. Yeah, apparently from what I can gather, Jeff, is it requires somebody in her role, the DNI, to officially do that. So,
well, he can do it, but he doesn't have the mechanics to do it. You know, someone's got to do the paperwork and get into the they call it Scattered Castles database and pull those people out and put a big red X over their files. Right. No good for you.
Either way, the way I interpreted it, Jeff, when I caught this afternoon, actually, was that it's another promise fulfilled on the behalf of Trump. So I'm happy to see that happen for sure. I think Tulsi's going to do really good in this position.
Still waiting for the Epstein list, though.
Well, that's outside of her area. That's Pam Bondi.
No, that's not her.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for Pam Bondi. I'll be honest on that one, but I've already mentioned that numerous times. So we'll carry on to the second piece of breaking news, which a lot of people noticed today. There were periodic outages on X and Rumble. And actually, Rumble is about 45 minutes ago was going up and down, up and down, up and down.
I couldn't get on right before we started the show.
So Elon was asked about it today in this interview with Nick Sorter, and he basically said it appears that the IP addresses are coming from Ukraine, which doesn't really surprise me, to be quite frank, and that they get hit daily, which doesn't surprise me either. But this was a particularly large volume DDoS, so distributed denial of service. And for those people who are familiar with what a DDoS is, it basically overwhelms a set of servers. So there's many, many servers that make up Twitter. They're housed in multiple different locations. But just for argument's sake, like bullshit numbers, if they could handle 1,000 connections every second, you hit it with 10,000 connections every second, and it just drains them of all their resources. So,
well, the irony is they're probably doing that through Starlink. So I think he should just turn Starlink off in that part of the world and see what happens to the DDoS.
Brilliant comment on your part. All joking aside, I saw somebody else say the same thing. It's probably these ungrateful people in Ukraine using his own technology against him, which is not.
They probably got in their Teslas, drove to where the Starlink terminal was, and then sent nastygrams.
Right.
Elon Musk.
All right. So those are the two breaking news items that we had on the agenda today. So next up, and y'all are familiar that each day I will submit a query to multiple AIs and say, what are the, biggest news stories today, the top 10, 15, 20, and then we carve it down. And you've all also heard me mention how many times what makes it into that list, and I leave it in even though it's wrong, but I leave it in as an example to show how the output for these things is only as good as their programming and the sources that they capture information from. So almost every single top news item today, Jeff, is skewed by the legacy media, the globalists, something like that. And it's easy for us to spot. We do this every day. But for example, the first one, economic uncertainty amid new tariffs. President Trump's tariff policies are sparking debate with concerns about potential recessions and higher prices for Americans. A key economic advisor has pushed back against recession fears, but consumer pessimism is growing, as reported by Reuters and CBS News. So again, you're asking the wolf what his opinion is on the hen house. In my mind, I don't know anybody firsthand who's expressed any pessimism whatsoever. I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's not some overwhelming thing. I talk to a lot of people through the course of a day, and not one person has expressed any pessimism over the economy or tariffs. I don't know. What are you seeing in Arizona, Jeff?
Well, my wife said that one woman that she talked to expressed concern about her stocks, but I know her husband and she has no freaking clue about their stocks. He does, and he's not worried because he's like, I'm not selling any right now, so what do I care?
Good point.
Good point. She's someone, sweet lady, but she gets all of her information from The View.
Well, that says a lot right there.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of, dovetails with my argument completely. Your output is only as good as your input. So it's not complicated.
If these AIs are pulling, they go out and they do news stories, but if they're pulling primarily from, the Boston Herald and the New York Times and the Washington Post and the LA Times and the San Francisco Chronicle, gee, I wonder which way those articles are going to skew.
I would actually go one step further than that, Jeff. Since we've seen this massive consolidation in legacy media, right? You've got 6 companies control almost 100% of all legacy news media. It doesn't matter if they're trying to appear to be conservative or liberal. They all spew the same talking points. It's really, really hard to get anything from the legacy media that's not partisan, unless it's something that just has absolutely nothing to do with politics or government or anything like that. But here's the next one. And I've never stressed over this before, and I'm still not stressing over it. Government shutdown looms. And I know it's a bit of an eye test, but if you can see my note beside that headline, my rhetorical question is, who cares? So with federal funding set to expire on March 14th, House Republicans have unveiled a 6-month stopgap bill. Trump has signaled support, but warned a shutdown is possible, creating tension as negotiations continue, per Reuters again. So
yeah,
Reuters, but
yeah, the thing is, are they going to pay the military? Yeah, they're going to still. Are you going to get your Social Security check? Yeah, that's all. That's not a budget item per se. But if agriculture and HUD and all these things shut down for 2 weeks, would anyone really notice? The answer is absolutely not. The only ones I worry about not getting money, Homeland Security and the military.
Yeah, good point. I would agree completely. And that's what I'm saying. It's not that I don't think we have good employees in certain sectors of our government, but if all this stuff halted tomorrow, other than, like, as you pointed out, essential services, I don't see it affecting me at all. Not even slightly.
And thing is, those people, I've been through many government shutdowns in my career, and those people are declared essential and they still go to work.
Yeah, good point. Good point there. So moving on to the next one. And by the way, I left all 10 in today just because of the reasons I already mentioned. So number 3 is immigration enforcement actions. The Trump administration's restrictive immigration policies are under scrutiny, with Morgan Stanley analysts warning of economic impacts. This remains a hot topic as enforcement ramps up, noted in CBS News coverage. I call bullshit on that. I don't see this as a hot topic. It's something that we're all glad it's been fixed as much as you can fix in the short term, but it's been fixed. And I heard a really interesting speech today by JD Vance that I'm going to share with you, and I want to hear your feedback on this. So, the whatever you want to call them, the legacy media, et cetera, are having meltdowns because we've locked the border down. Eagle Pass apparently went from an average of 1,500 illegals a day to less than 20 a day since Trump's got back in office. But JD Vance said something really interesting. He said, you know, for a national average, a household has to have a $200,000 per year income now to afford an average home. And obviously it's going to be way higher in places like LA, and it's going to be way lower in places like the Southeast, for example. But I thought to myself, wow, that's a pretty big number. I mean, I'm 56, so I'm middle-aged, but I'm not that old. And I mean, I can remember monthly mortgage payments. My first one was like $350 a month. Yeah. But anyway, where he went with this, I found really interesting as it relates to the economy and society on the whole. He said that there are approximately 20 million households comprised of illegal aliens. So I don't know how he arrived at that number, but I'm sure it's directionally correct. But basically what he was saying is if there's 50 million illegals in the country, a bunch of them live together, obviously as family units, but 20 million housing units. And he said what most Americans don't realize, but that cranks the price of housing up like nuts, because you've just added 20 million more people needing shelter.
Supply and demand.
Yeah. I just thought it's not hard to think through. It's easy to realize the logic in it, but it wasn't something that was top of mind for me until JD Vance said that. And I thought that's valid. That's really good. So anyway, I don't think anybody is freaking out over immigration enforcement. On the contrary. Number 4, this one keeps coming up, and I'm absolutely 1000% convinced that this is a psyop, and that's measles outbreak and vaccine resistance. A measles outbreak in Texas has doctors pushing back against vaccine hesitancy among parents, while the CDC plans a study on vaccines and autism, stirring public health debates, according to Reuters, however you want to pronounce it. So the young lad who died, and they tried to say he died because he had measles in West Texas, turns out that he had a whole slew of physical ailments that caused his death, more so than measles. And that's why I say this is starting to have the feeling of a psyop, because it shows up every day when I do this, Jeff. Give me the top 10, 15, 20 from all those AIs. It keeps coming up, and I keep looking at it thinking, I don't hear a word about this. Like, nobody is saying to me, Chris, are you concerned over measles or anything like that? So I'm really starting to feel like it's a psyop. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, they're trying to instill panic and fear because they make money on panic and fear. Yeah, it's just like during COVID. You had all these people, oh, they're dying of COVID. No, they were dying with COVID. How many, the people who died, quote unquote, of COVID were overwhelmingly obese, sick with about 10 other things. I think the average was they all had like 7 or 8 different chronic ailments. Well, COVID didn't kill them. It may have pushed them off the edge. But measles is not that big a deal. My daughter caught measles. We lived in Dallas at the time, and she was one of 5 cases in Dallas County that year. No clue where she got it. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. She must have got it at a grocery store or something. Okay. But it wasn't that big a deal. She got it. She had the rash. She got the oatmeal baths. It went away in about a week, and she's been fine ever since.
Sorry, I was just signaling to Robert. He made a nice comment. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No. And I had measles as a kid. Didn't kill me. Didn't kill my brothers. Didn't kill my sister. We all had measles. We all had chickenpox. We all had mumps. It wasn't that big a deal.
John Wheaton sent out a spoof video last week, and it was showing an episode of the Brady Bunch, and one of the kids ends up with measles. So they all end up with measles. So they're all staying home, and they think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then it pivots to the year 2025. And it's like, Earth is coming to an end. Humanity's at risk. And just the difference in the reaction was pretty telling. It was interesting. But anyway, I seriously don't trust what we're being told on this measles stuff whatsoever. Number 5, trade war escalation with China. China's top foreign policy official has addressed the intensifying U.S.-China trade war, promoting China as a global anchor amid America's retreat from international involvement, as reported by NPR. Well, there's a whole bunch of untruths in that sentence. And I've said it multiple times recently, but it bears repeating. China is in deep, deep trouble economically and otherwise. And their unemployment rate is off the chain. They've got approximately half of their males under the age of 40 will never get married and have children because of the way they enforce their one child per family policy starting all those years ago in the 80s. You have 60% of their plants shut down. You have entire ghost cities. So China is your typical communist country where they'll beat their chest and puff their chest out when in reality behind the curtain it's not so rosy. You're much more schooled, learned than I am when it comes to international stuff. I mean, do you have any apprehensions over for our international presence because of China? I don't have that feeling.
No, not really. And thing is, China should be worried about us. Okay, we have a huge debt problem, and it's getting worse, and it's getting, we need to fix it. But if our economy collapses, theirs just implodes.
Oh yeah.
Because when if we have to raise taxes and do all this stuff for debt servicing and all that. One thing we're not going to have money for: imports.
Good point.
And so, and where do we get them all from? China. Yeah, they need us a lot more than we need them. I mean, there's a lot of schlock that we get out of China. I look at this little drone I bought over here for $20. Yeah, it's out of China. But when push goes to shove, do I really need that? No, not at all. I don't need to buy all this new crap. A lot of times you buy it because it's cheap and it's on Amazon and it's on sale, but you don't really need it.
So on this topic, kind of related on a tangent. So I have a weekly meeting every Monday with Todd Callender, and the guy's absolutely brilliant. And he just got back from this huge conference where it's all the world's richest people, not a globalist NWO sort of thing, but related to insurance, because that's the industry that he's in. And he said there is a massive movement afoot that isn't necessarily being broadcast across the news to make every currency in the world backed by gold, and that it's going to put a massive demand for gold. So here's some interesting numbers. His CFO, who is off the chain intelligent, is predicting that within the next 18 months or so, that gold is going to go to $12,000 per ounce. It's at $2,900 today. Okay. And then there were a bunch of big bankers there from all of the regular players you would expect, like JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, etc. And they are all predicting within the next 18 to 24 months that gold will go to $22,000 per ounce. And then there was a contingency of people there who said, look, we've done the math. Here's the math. They put it up on a slide. If you zero out America's debt, the $37 trillion that we have in debt, by making the American dollar backed by gold, it will take the price of gold to $122,000 per ounce. Now, the person didn't say that's going to happen, but what Todd told me is that there's overwhelming consensus that the way to stabilize all this financial stuff is to take everything back to the gold standard. And then somebody asked me a question this afternoon. I thought to myself, dang it, I wish I had thought of that and asked Todd. So I'm going to ask you. So right now, for example, the Canadian dollar's beat up because of the tariffs, et cetera, right? And I don't remember what the exact number is, but their dollar's only worth like 60 something cents American right now. So stupid question time, Jeff. If every currency in the world is based on gold, would there be exchange rates? Wouldn't it all just be the same as far as value is concerned? You're on mute.
I would think it would depend on how much currency they have in circulation. If you're a small country and you've got 7 trillion, whatever's in circulation, but you've got 100 pounds of gold to back it up. Well, each one of those is not going to be worth a lot. That's the thing is we have the same problem here. We have printed so much money with quantitative easing and all that. I have no idea what the money supply is, but it's humongous. And if you said, okay, now all currency is backed by gold, the way you would peg the price of gold for the United States would be, okay, how many tons of gold does the United States have versus how many dollars are in circulation? And just to make up numbers, if you've got, if you've got 1,000 pounds of gold and you've got, $100,000 in circulation, then a pound of gold in the United States is worth, $10. Or what, you would just divide one by the other, which is why every time they increase the money supply, the price of gold should go up because there's a lot more money, but the amount of gold is fixed. So the price of gold should go up. And that's what happens when you monetize your debt, meaning you just print money. Likewise, if you had, a million ounces of gold and $10 million in circulation, gold's $10 an ounce. It's just divide one by the other.
It's an interesting topic. Todd said that the overwhelming consensus amongst the people at that level is that big entities right now are going around trying to vacuum up as much gold as they can before the price takes off running. Yeah. But he made another comment. He said there's not an equal chance, but there's still a chance of two other things factoring into this, and that was oil and cryptocurrency, and having them back your currency to some extent. And that's when the conversation got way above my pay grade, because now you're talking currency that's jointly backed by gold, oil, and cryptocurrency. But definitely some interesting comments on Todd's part. I reached out to one of the guys at Advantage Gold and asked for his opinion today. I haven't heard back from him, but I'll be interested to see what he's got to say. All right, next one up, number 6, farmers' loyalty to Trump tested. So here's more bullshit, by the way. American farmers, long supporters of Trump, face challenges from his trade policies. The latest trade war could strain their sector further, testing their allegiance per NPR, government-funded propaganda. And here's the thing. We export, we have a deficit between exporting and importing stuff. It's everybody else that's at risk because they sell into our economy, the largest economy in the world by an order of magnitude. It's not so much us selling to other countries. Now, that changing by repatriating manufacturing will be a great thing for us. But right now, at this point in time, I didn't have a chance to look up the number, but I would be surprised if our agricultural exports were anything significant in the grand scheme of things. I don't know if you have any insight on that.
I think they are right now. In fact, I think last year we were, for the first time ever, a net importer of agricultural products, because Americans are addicted to food in a lot of ways, and so we have to have. I've got green grapes in my refrigerator right now. I guarantee you they didn't come from the United States. They probably came from Chile. You want summer fruit in the wintertime and you want winter food in the summertime. It's got to come from halfway around the world. And there's so many things that I want it. So by God, I need to get it. How much coffee do we drink? How much coffee do we grow?
Yeah.
The first number is a ton. The second number is none.
Yeah, good point. Really good point. Anyway, all of these items today, like I said, your output's only as good as your input. So when they're gathering information from all of these legacy media propaganda outlets, it's easy to see how an artificial intelligence application would say, okay, well, these are the biggest news stories. But really what it is this is the biggest programming that's being attempted right now. This is what they're trying to program you to think. So number 7 is Federal Reserve's cautious stance. Fed Chair Powell has emphasized a deliberate approach to interest rate changes, citing uncertainty over Trump's economic policies, a key focus in CBS News and Reuters, whatever, reports. So Todd said today, and that we got cut a little bit short in the conversation, and I just can't remember it for the life of me. I'm going to ask him next time we speak, but there was something that happened in Trump's first term, and he said, gives Donald Trump way more control over the Fed than any president before then has ever had. And then, like I say, a couple other people joined the meeting and we got off on a different topic. I'm going to have to ask him what that was exactly. But either way, this is, if it's coming from NPR, I'm going to be looking at it sideways to start with. And I really don't, I haven't heard any farmers. I haven't heard anybody else say, oh, the Fed needs to be cautious. I haven't heard of any of these things whatsoever. And I'm pretty plugged in. So anyway, moving on from there, number 8, social media and tech developments. Posts on X highlight a social media outage as a notable story, while Apple intelligence issues are making waves in tech news, as seen in 9 to 5 Mac coverage. 9 to 5 Mac has been around forever and a day. The big story today for the tech outages is it looks like it was Ukraine, although here's an interesting thing. I don't know if you heard this or not. Mid-afternoon this afternoon, the Iranian government sent out a missive that said that they were the ones who had brought down X and Rumble. And I haven't seen any proof for anything, but if Elon says that it originated in the Ukraine, that's probably where it originated, but that doesn't mean that that's the initial source, right? So when bad guys are doing stuff, even good guys are covering their tracks, you go through a network of systems trying to obfuscate where you're actually coming from. And so there could be bots, for example, where bad guys can light up Trojan horses, take control of them in Ukraine and make it look like the attack is from Ukraine, but it, by all rights, could be in Iran as well. So right now we don't know any more than that, other than it's got to be a pretty big attack to take down X. Number 9, and here's more BS, education and DEI backlash. The Department of Education's new NDEI portal encourages reporting on public schools, raising questions about diversity policies as explored by NPR. So there's a tweet or an X post somewhere in today's sit rep. We'll get to it, but it basically says we've all been led to believe that there's this massive movement of woke progressives, but as soon as USAID funding dried up, all of a sudden, and we've mentioned this, nobody shows up to protest, and they're nowhere near as big as they tried to portray themselves as being. And when I read this, like backlash against DEI, the only people who are fighting back against DEI are the ones who don't have the ability to succeed on their own, and they need a hand up and a handout. You're on mute, Jeff.
This is the equivalent, though, of burglars saying, 9 out of 10 burglars say locks on your house are not worth the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's freaking NPR. They are DEI. DEI executives say losing DEI is bad for your business. Well, no, it's bad for their business. And it's just like, unemployment goes up, and it's government employees who've been fired and probably professional protesters who can't get gigs anymore because no one can pay them. Yeah,
good point. All right, number 10, last one for top news items today. Energy policy shifts. Ontario's 25% electricity surcharge to U.S. states like Michigan and New York, effective today, alongside oil price declines due to tariff uncertainty, signals shift in energy dynamics per CBS and Reuters routers. I personally think, and I can't remember the guy's first name, but not the governor, the premier of Ontario, his last name's Ford.
Yeah.
And I don't think he realizes that this will have permanent negative effects on them, because if we have to make changes on our side as far as power generation and allocation is concerned, when all this baloney over tariffs, is yesterday's news, we won't be going back to Ontario for anything.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a stupid thing, because Ontario and Hydro-Quebec in particular produces a shit ton of electricity because they have all these hydro dams. And they export it because they produce a lot more than they use. Well, if they either jack their prices or quit supplying us, then we say, well, okay, you're unreliable. We'll just build more power plants here. We'll build some gas plants, and we'll build the coal plant, or we'll do whatever we have to do. We'll make adjustments. They're not going to turn off the lights. And then when Hydro-Quebec comes in and says, well, we'll start selling to you now, those people are going to say, well, I just spent $100 million on a power plant, which I still got to pay the bonds on. So I'm going to keep using it and keep selling that power. But if you sell yours cheap enough, then I'll use it. So they'll end up having to lower their prices to regain market share, and they'll end up losing money because of that. So it's really cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Well, the whole situation is in general, right? So we've mentioned this before, but I don't know if it's been you and I at the same time. So I want to hear your input on this. So we went to Canada and Mexico and we said, we want help keeping fentanyl out of our country, illegal aliens, terrorists, etc. And all the Canadians had to do was say, okay, we'll help protect our borders and their borders, sort of thing, to keep it out. And then they published something that said that there was only 43 pounds in fentanyl caught last year coming across the border. Well, number one, if it's low grade fentanyl, there's two ways to make it: very rudimentary versus lab manufactured. The rudimentary method would still be 10 million lethal doses out of that 43 million, right? But we have stopped cooperating with them quite some time ago on joint investigations because they have this crazy law there where they have to inform people that they're under investigation. I've never heard of such a thing, and I wouldn't repeat it if I didn't research it, but that's the case. So we stopped sharing intel, but there was somebody came and did an interview a couple of weeks ago and basically laid it all out at how sophisticated the fentanyl production is in Canada. And most of it is lab-based, not done the rudimentary way, which is an order of magnitude more potent than the rudimentary way of manufacturing it. So if you step back for a second and say, okay, all Canada had to do was commit to helping us stem the flow of fentanyl illegals and terrorists, but they chose to go the opposite direction and get into a trade war with us that's unwinnable for them. I mean, they account for something like 1.5% of our GDP, and we'll have no problems backfilling that. Whereas when you go the other way around, a big part of their economy is hitched to us in a very, very big way. So that would then draw the question, why would they make such a decision? And the only way I can square that, Jeff, is that whether it's Trump or now this Carney guy, by the way, Carney is part of the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders program, just like Trudeau was. And so new boss, same as the old boss. The only reason I can see them not going along with our simple request to help stem the flow, tighten up the border, is because they're WEF pawns, and the WEF will do anything to bring America down because we are the firewall between globalism and freedom. I can't think of any other legit reason. Can you?
No, unless it's just ego, but the logical reason is for them to do, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I guess it probably is until it comes true, and this is the fact. They want this whole one world government. You look at the EU. I mean, you've got bureaucrats in Brussels telling people in Hungary what kind of wax they can dip their cheese in. I mean, this kind of ridiculous, arcane rules. And what that does is it empowers the bureaucratic state. It takes the power away from the people and actually away from elected officials, and it turns it over to technocrats, unelected bureaucrats. And if you're a technocrat, man, you're in it. I mean, we've got the swamp. That's what they have. And theirs is more powerful right now than ours is. We are the only thing stopping this from going worldwide. It's already in Canada. So every Western country pretty much except us has that form of government. And look at what they did in Romania. They had a populist candidate. He won the election, so they declared the election null and void. And then they just arrested him on some BS charges and then said, well, since you've been arrested, you can't run for office.
Correct.
So they're basically doing to Georgescu what Biden tried to do to Trump. Tried to get him off of ballots, tried to get him arrested, put in jail, and that's what they're doing to that guy. But it's working for them because the EU's backing them.
And again, I think that's somewhere in our situation report for today, because the main topic, which we're going to pivot to now, is us getting out of NATO. And as we talked before we went live, the European technocrats, I like to refer to them, by the way, Jeff, now as Eurofags. I saw that word years ago, and it just seems very fitting. But anyway, Klaus Schwab comes out and says a couple months ago that the WEF is going to have to whip us into shape, meaning American voters, because we're not mature enough to elect legitimate, serious politicians. And we can't be allowed to vote for people like Donald Trump. The hubris that these clowns have. Like, I'm not a like a warmonger guy or anything like that, but when I hear things like that, and then they come back and say, "Hey, we need a hand fighting this war," my knee-jerk reaction is, "Screw you, screw you." Why should we sacrifice American lives? You know, you love our technology, you love our money, you love us sacrificing our young men and women, but you treat us like we're subhuman to y'all. And again, that pivots directly into the NATO stuff, which we could probably do. No word of a lie, we could probably cover NATO for weeks and still not cover every single angle of why this is just not good for us in America. Besides putting money into the military industrial complex, I actually don't see any good stuff coming out of NATO for us. We've been defending them for how many decades now at our expense, and none of them, with the exception of Poland, have really stepped up to the plate and put any significant money in. So let me go through this article here from Tyler Durden, on Zero Hedge. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'm going to hit on the main points here because it's well written. The case for getting out of NATO encompasses 4 fundamental propositions. First, the federal budget has become a self-fueling fiscal doomsday machine, even as the Fed has run out of capacity to monetize the skyrocketing public debt. Number 2, the only viable starting point for fiscal salvation is slashing the nation's elephantine warfare state by at least $500 billion per year. 3, the route to that end is a return to the no entangling alliance wisdom of the founders, which means bringing the empire home, closing the 750 U.S. bases abroad, scuttling much of the U.S. Navy and Army, and withdrawing from NATO and similar lesser commitments elsewhere. I'm not entirely in favor of everything he just stated there, by the way. 4th, jettisoning NATO requires debunking its origin story and the false claim that it brought peace and security to post-war America, when what it actually did was transform Washington into the war capital of the world, dominated by a panoptic complex of arms merchants, neocon warmongers, and a vast warfare state. I'm not familiar with this word.
Nomenclatura.
Yeah,
which is a Russian term, which is basically their deep state, the professional bureaucrats.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm not going to read the rest of this article here.
Very long article. I read most of it.
Yeah, I did too. It's a great article, and anybody who wants to read it in full, you can look up Tyler Durden's stuff on Zero Hedge, or you can go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, sign up for an insider membership, and get the daily sit rep every single day with all these links. So I'm going to leave those 4 points up there, Jeff, and have you comment on each of them. So our federal budget, self-fueling fiscal doomsday machine. In other words, we just can't keep going the way we're going.
Yeah, and in the article, if you go further down, don't need to, but it talks about how every big war we build up to, a huge budget, defense budget, because we're in fighting a war. But after those wars, it would go back down. I mean, like 93%. After World War II, we had 12 million men under arms. And within like 2 years or 3 years, we were down to a couple million. So it dropped, 70 some odd percent. And the budget went from, I think, 17% of the GDP down to like 5% of the GDP, because we're not fighting a war. We don't need to be buying, 15 B-29s every day. But what's happened since NATO started, and I'm not blaming it all on NATO, we just keep spending money like we're in a constant war footing. And even after the Soviet Union collapsed, we still keep spending money. There was supposed to be a peace dividend, we never got it. And if for the idea that it somehow made the world a peaceful place, how many people alive today have ever lived in a time where there hasn't been war going on? There's always war going on. The United States we've been in war in Korea. We've been in war in Vietnam. We've been in war. We've invaded Panama 2 or 3 times. We've had, Afghanistan once, Iraq twice. We had troops in Lebanon. We've had troops in Grenada, for Christ's sakes. We almost invaded Cuba. We blockaded them. I mean, it's been a constant state of war, either a hot war or a cold war. But we've had, I mean, that's one of the reasons, sadly, that we have such a good warfighting machine is everybody has combat experience because there's always been combat.
Good point. Yeah, really
And
good point.
This country has not known true peace since, hell, I don't know, the 30s.
So somewhere in my research on this particular topic, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this, Jeff, was that the original premise behind NATO was if one of the NATO members got attacked, we would all defend them. Right. But somewhere along the way, somebody made a point that it's now interpreted that if one NATO company picks a fight with some other country, that we're all expected to be in the fight with them. And that's BS. I don't agree with that at all. But I thought it was a pretty poignant thing that, you know, they put a fine point on. And I don't understand how anybody could think that, okay, well, France wants to pick a fight with Russia, so therefore we have to fight with them against Russia.
Well, and the other thing is France can't fight against Russia. They're going to start it and expect us to finish it. Yeah, when they talk about deploying NATO troops, it's going to be like 5 Brits and 150 Americans.
Yeah.
You know, Germany will send in like an MP battalion, you know, and, you know, the other guys will throw in some cooks, maybe some truck drivers, but the fighting is going to be done by us. It's always done by us because we're the only ones who can do it. And you got to, at some point, you got to say, okay, why are we doing this? Why am I sending my kid off to die?
Yeah. Well, we have another 9 or 10, tabs to cover on this particular topic, but this has been very disproportionate against us. Like, we're the ones who have put the lion's share of everything into this. And before anybody makes any comments that we're pro-Russia or pro-Ukraine or pro-Israel or pro-Hamas, we're pro none of that stuff. We are pro-America, America first. There's a whole bunch of us that voted for less war. We don't want to be part of it at all. You know, if the Russians, Ukrainians want to, you know, knock each other out, they can have it, because like you will frequently say, Jeff, doesn't matter if it's Zelensky or Putin, neither one of them are good people.
No.
So why do we have to be aligned with one of them? I don't want to be part of either of them.
No, it's like 2 drug gangs fighting over a street corner. Why do you care who wins? But the other thing is, with all these people who, okay, Ukraine got invaded, I get that, you know, and they've fought heroically, I get that too. But at the same time, why do my kids have to go off and die for it? Now, if you want to go fight for the Ukrainians, you like them so much, pick up a rifle, jump in a trench, and join them. No one's stopping you. A lot of Americans did it in Spain in the 30s. You know, they went and joined the Abraham Lincoln Brigade and all this stuff, and to fight the dreaded nationalists in Spain. But of course, the quote unquote Republicans turned out to be all communists anyway. But
right.
No one's stopping you.
No,
but
not at all.
The idea that you don't want you to fight, you want me to fight. It's like, sorry, I don't want to fight.
Well, it's, again, they want our money, our technology, and our young people's lives at their disposal. I just don't agree with it. I don't want anything to do with this stuff. But moving on, here's a short clip of Trump here, 42 seconds. But basically, if you don't put some skin in the game, why should I defend you? And he's got a valid point here.
Are you going to make that policy, U.S. policy, that the U.S. wouldn't defend NATO countries that don't pay?
I think it's common sense, right? If they don't pay, I'm not going to defend them. No, I'm not going to defend them. I got into a lot of heat when I said that. You said, oh, he's violating NATO. And, you know, the biggest problem I have with NATO, I really, you know, I mean, I know the guys very well. They're friends of mine. But if the United States was in trouble and we called them, we said, we got a problem, France. We got a problem, a couple of others I won't mention. Do you think they're going to come and protect us? They're supposed to. I'm not so sure.
So
you know?
What's your answer to that question, Jeff?
Well,
do you think they would come to defend us?
No.
No.
they would claim logistical issues. I look at it as, it's like, if you're unwilling to defend yourself, why in the hell should I defend you? And the one time we didn't do it, and we probably should have, nobody else did either, by the way, is when Argentina took over the Falklands. The Falklands was British territory.
That's right.
And Britain should have, Britain had every right to declare, Article 5 of the NATO treaty and say, okay, we all have to go take our territory back. I mean, it wasn't like it was a colony or something. It was, islands in the South Atlantic that nobody lived on really before, they got there. And it had been British territory for a couple hundred years. But they didn't. They went down and handled it on their own. And just like there's, when we went into Grenada and all these other places, we did it on our own. We didn't ask for their help. So I think the only time Article 5 has ever been actually used was on the war on terror.
Yeah,
but NATO did get their pull together and go fight Serbia. Why, I don't know.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but Ryan couldn't be more accurate with his comment. No one's coming to help us. End of story. So we shouldn't even pretend that that's the case. Now, the next one here, I want to preface this by saying, you don't have to necessarily support somebody's position to understand it. And based on what happens in this time-lapsed video here, it's not hard to understand Putin's motivations. Now, that doesn't mean that we're promoting him invading any other country or anything like that, but this is a pretty telling video, to be quite frank. So there's a date up here in the top left, 1993, 495. I'm just going to pause it there before I go any further. So when they say NATO alliance, the dark blue is a NATO member. The lighter blue, some sort of partnership. They have a couple different partnership levels, and no need necessarily to play it through the rest of the way. I'll take it. I wanted to take it right to the end here. Give me a second. Get this queued up. Golly, it's too fast. Faster than I am. There we go. Okay. So that's quite a dramatic change.
Oh, but it gets worse because Finland and Sweden are full NATO members now.
Correct.
So they're dark blue.
Correct. So again, we don't have to agree with somebody's actions like Putin, but again, this is not hard to see why he's taken the position he has. Imagine Russia putting nukes back in Cuba like they did during the Cuban Missile Crisis, then putting them on the ground in Mexico and Canada. That's exactly what this is. We wouldn't stand for it.
No.
So, and you probably recall the specifics better than me, but when the Soviet Republic was dissolved, there were some commitments made on Europe's part in particular that said, we won't press up against the Russian border. We won't attack Russia. We won't make people like Ukraine in particular part of NATO. And to me, it doesn't look like they honored their commitment there.
No,
the Europeans
didn't. Well, in 89, when the wall came down, the first one was Gorbachev was still in power, Soviet Union still existed, but East Germany collapsed. And there was the merger with West Germany. But there was a big question is, was NATO going to put troops, was a united Germany going to be part of NATO by de facto? And would they put troops in Eastern Germany? And the promise made to Gorbachev was that, okay, look, they're going to merge, they're going to reunite, they're going to be part of NATO, a full member of NATO, but we won't move one more inch eastward. NATO will not move an inch eastward.
Mm-hmm.
And Russia said, okay. They weren't in much of a position to argue with us anyway at that point. Or
Sure.
Soviet Union did. Well, then Soviet Union collapsed, and all the Eastern European nations, Czechoslovakia at the time, Hungary, Romania, they all ended up collapsing. Well, then they all ended up joining NATO. They first started out as Partnership for Peace and all this, but they all became NATO. And then, but there were still Ukraine and Belarus, there were still buffers. But then we went into the Baltics. Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. They're right on the Russian border. Well, then they became NATO. And all of a sudden, you're Russia going, okay, I thought NATO was this Cold War thing. The Cold War is over. You guys won. But you're still pushing your alliance eastward, and now you're right on our borders.
Yeah.
It's not a very peaceful thing to do. And there was a Russian politician who actually had run for president and lost, but he says, people, it says, you don't think people pay attention, but he says, I'd be out campaigning in the middle of nowhere in Russia, and people would be saying, what the hell's going on with NATO? Why are they expanding? Cold War's over. And it was a good question. We didn't have an answer for it.
Well, I think we know what the answer is. I mean, they're in pursuit of absolute power.
Yeah.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So moving on to the next one here. This puts a very fine point on this. Why does America pay for now rich Europe's defense funding, a majority, 70% of NATO, with America's huge government deficits, many vital domestic issues to address, and 250 billion to Ukraine, more like 350 at the bare minimum, is far past time for European nations to stand up for themselves. So that was a comment to this post by Matt Van Swal. Just drove down the road to get groceries for my family in Western North Carolina. Don't you dare tell me I have to continue funding a war in Ukraine when my town looks like this. I mean, that looks like something out of a war zone, not something out of the United States. And that's a really valid comment, if you ask me. Sorry, I just blew it up there.
Yeah. Well, the funding levels, okay, we're 70% of NATO funding. Well, EU's gross domestic product as the EU is about the same as ours. Why aren't they paying 50? Those numbers were set when Europe was devastated after World War II. Russia or Germany was in shambles. France had been overrun. Britain's industries were just worn out, and so we ended up taking the lion's share because we had the economy. But for Christ's sakes, it was 80 years ago. Why are we still doing that?
Good question. Good point. So check this one out. This is from Trump's first tenure in office. And this is that snotty, looking down the nose type attitude I was mentioning earlier. Trump warned NATO not to be reliant on Russia for oil and gas, and an entire German delegation laughed in his face. And here's a kicker for you. Since 2022, the European Union has spent more money buying petroleum products from Russia than they have to assist Ukraine in fighting Russia. I mean, it's such a juxtaposed position, right? But this is the kind of stuff right here that when I see it, I think to myself, you know what? Y'all can go fall off a cliff for all I care. We shouldn't be sending any of our people and resources to defend you when you behave like this. And maybe I'm being oversensitive to it, but I don't like this at all. It's 37 seconds.
The construction of a Baltic pipeline so that nations are not dependent on Russia to meet their energy needs. Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign power.
So look at these assholes here from Germany. They all thought this was really funny during Trump's first tenure. What would happen to Germany today if they didn't get any petroleum products, liquid natural gas, oil from Russia, Jeff?
It collapsed.
Correct.
I mean, that when the pipeline got blown up, that Nord Stream, they went into full panic mode because they had no backups. They've shut down their nuclear power plants. They don't burn coal anymore, or very little, because they're trying to appease the stupid Green Party idiots. And they're losing heavy industry. The automobile manufacturers are moving plants overseas because they can't get enough power at a reasonable price to run them. UK has, I think their electricity rates are 4 times, 5 times what ours are, but they won't burn natural gas. They found a natural gas field in Lincolnshire that would supply the whole country for 6 years. They won't develop it because they don't like hydraulic fracturing.
For me, at the end of the day, it's why not just use nuclear? It's cheap, it's fast, it's efficient, and modern stuff that we have now is much safer than it was, in the 70s and 80s. But anyway,
runs all year long, rain or shine.
This right here, this condescending look on their face right there makes me again say, okay, you want to start World War III, you want to engage in a war with Putin, and you want our money, you want our military technology, and you expect us as Americans to condone our young people being killed in war when this is the way you treat us? Screw it. Screw you. We don't need them. They need us, other way around, and they still behave like this. All right, next one up. NATO operations chiefs, 5 lessons learned from the war in Ukraine. So this is from the perspective of one of the few sane Europeans on this particular topic, okay? So lesson number 1, collective action rests on the foundation of shared awareness, and it takes real work to achieve that shared awareness, he said. And unlike in 2014, where ambassadors were arguing, they're looking at pictures saying, see, the Russians are in Crimea, and the next ambassador would say, no, that looks like 100 to me. And as a result, we didn't do anything because we didn't have shared awareness of what was going on. Our 2022 response could not have been more different than the 2014 response, in primary part due to shared intelligence among allies. Ready for this? Especially from the U.S. So lesson number 1, if they don't have our intel, they're in a pretty bad spot as far as a confrontation with Russia or any other major power is concerned. Lesson number 2, it's not what we do that provokes Putin, it's what we don't do. We should have learned that in 2014, and that takes us to lesson number 3. Putin is not a strategist. He's an opportunist. He pushes on some doors, and when nobody pushes back, he walks in. What 2014 taught him was that there was no significant consequence for using force. It invited Putin's 2022 invasion. In my opinion, in his own words, Putin believes that, quote, a serious, irreconcilable struggle is unfolding for the formation of a new world order. Takes us to lesson number 4. We are in a strategic confrontation. I believe our Australian friends are seeing the same from Chinese Premier Xi Jinping dynamic in the Indo-Pacific. Putin explicitly said he'll use crisis and conflict during peace to win the strategic confrontation. Peace, crisis, conflict used to be a sequence part of our model. Now it's a spectrum. As NATO Secretary General Routh said, we are not at war, but we're certainly not at peace either. And number 5, here's the big one. We are woefully underinvested in our transatlantic defense industrial base to protect the capabilities we need at pace and at scale. Russia, with an economy 5% the size of NATO, produces in 3 months many critical munitions that it takes 32 allies an entire year to produce. I know I'm not making friends amongst the industry at this point, but something is very wrong here, and we must fix it. So without our assistance, as I just mentioned, with weapons and munitions and everything goes with it, without our intelligence, without us saying, okay, we'll put boots on the ground, they're not in a very strong position at all.
Yeah.
But they can look down their nose at us. And that seems to me completely counterintuitive. If you want help from somebody, why would you be condescending towards them? I should say when you need, not want, but when you need somebody.
Yeah. It's like I need to defend myself. Can you hand me a gun? Okay. You got any ammo for it? Yeah, sure. These bullets are dirty. Why didn't you give me clean bullets? It's like, just shut the hell up.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, we've only got a few more left on chapter 1 here, but Trump and Hegseth send NATO scrambling over future of Ukraine. And this was written a couple weeks ago when Pete Hegseth and other delegates went to Europe. NATO allies are in a state of anger, denial, and despair after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth effectively declared an end to America's role as the primary guarantor of European security, particularly over Ukraine. President Trump's surprise phone call with Vladimir Putin just hours later only added salt to the wound. Why it matters. Europe has been bracing for this moment since the early days of Trump's 2024 campaign. That hasn't made it any less painful or the future any less uncertain. State of play. Hegseth, who visited NATO headquarters for the first time this week, which was actually a couple weeks ago, made clear Wednesday that the following chips will now be off the table in peace talks, as a senior U.S. defense official stressed to Axios. Keep in mind, Axios far, far left wing. Number one, NATO membership for Ukraine, a central source of tension with Russia promised by the alliance in 2008, is not a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement, Hegseth said. So no NATO membership for Ukraine. If we say no or anybody else says no, they don't get in. It has to be unanimous. Number two, U.S. troops will not be deployed to Ukraine to enforce post-war security guarantees. Number three, any European peacekeepers sent to Ukraine should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, meaning Article 5, the alliance's bedrock principle of collective defense, should not protect them. Zoom out. Less clear is what chips remain on the table given Ukraine's deteriorating position on the battlefield, the potential curtailment of U.S. military aid, and Russia's gleeful response to the concessions. Trump spoke to Ukrainian President Zelensky on Wednesday after his call with Putin and said he and Putin had agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately. Zelensky told Trump on their phone call that Putin is only pretending to want to negotiate a peace deal because he's afraid of you, as Axios scooped the story. The latest, amid backlash from Ukrainian officials and NATO defense ministers, Hegseth defended the new U.S. position and rejected claims that Trump had handed Russia preemptive concessions. Any suggestion that President Trump is doing anything other than negotiating a position from strength is on its face ahistorical and false. Hegseth said at a press conference after his NATO meetings Thursday. Asked by Axios what leverage Ukraine has left, Hegseth responded sharply, "It's just a cheap political point to say, oh, we've left all negotiating cards off the table by recognizing some realities that exist on the ground. Trump's got all the cards he would like," Hegseth stressed. And the interesting part is, while the conventional status quo mindset or the legacy media wants to play checkers, President Trump time and again finds a way to play chess, he said. We have the perfect deal maker at the table from a position of strength to deal with both Putin and Zelensky. No one's going to get everything they want. So that trip, I was just going to say that trip reset the conversation with Europe, and now they're in full-on panic mode. I don't disagree with anything Pete Hegseth said. Is there anything you find in there as that you don't agree with?
No, not at all. And a good negotiation probably leaves both parties feeling like they've been screwed. If somebody thinks they got it all, then it wasn't a very good negotiation from the other guy's perspective. But what Putin has wanted, and he's wanted from the get-go, is he's wanted a buffer between Russia and NATO. Now we lost it with the Baltic states, but they're really too small to be a threat. Okay, he's got Belarus is on his side, so that's a buffer between him and Poland. Ukraine was a buffer between him and the southern countries of NATO, Hungary, Romania, Greece, and all that. Well, we're trying to take that away. There were no country capable of putting a large concentration of NATO troops on the Russian border. But if Ukraine goes in, country 30 million people, now that's a threat. He doesn't want that, and I don't blame him. Yeah, we wouldn't send for it. We wouldn't if it was Canada or Cuba or Mexico. We wouldn't put up with it. Why should And again, he's a horse's ass. Don't get me wrong. He's a megalomaniac.
Yeah.
But if you look at just put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, given all this, why are we pushing so hard for Ukraine to become part of NATO? Other than we want to go to war with Russia and we need the pretense to do it. And them invading Ukraine is that pretense. I don't want to go to war with Russia. They've got 12,000 nukes.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to go to war with us because we've got about the same. But no one wins a nuclear war, so why don't we just freaking avoid it?
Yeah, I agree on that. So this meme caught my attention today. America has nothing in common with NATO. So starting top left corner with Great Britain, we arrest thousands for Facebook posts. At last count, well over 3,000 people arrested for making Facebook posts that caused somebody anxiety. Next one, France. We shut down conservative TV stations. Next one up, we imprison people for memes. That would be Germany. Next one up, we cancel elections if the wrong guy is winning. Romania. And they have Canada. Protest the government, bank account frozen. Next one up, we imprison people for making sports stars cry. Next one up, we arrest professors for publishing rape stats. Next one up, Norway, I think. We imprison lesbians for saying men can't be one. And the last one, we jailed a rape victim. This was Germany, pardon me. We jailed a rape victim for longer than her rapists. Leave NATO now. And we really don't share culturally anywhere near as much with them as we did in the past. They have zero respect for freedom of speech. They have less than zero respect for the ability to defend yourself in your home with guns or anything else. I had a conversation with a guy who was from Australia. This was at SHOT Show when he had just come back from England. And I've heard of these stories before, but it was interesting to hear him state it, that one of the guys who worked for a company that he was doing business with in England had a home invasion, and they ended up rolling down a flight of stairs, and the bad guy died, and he got charged, tried, and convicted of manslaughter and put in jail.
Yeah, so here you get a medal.
I mean, it's everything is bass backwards. It's like bizarro world, right? So here we go. In Britain, people are thrown in prison for posting memes on the internet. In Germany, a pensioner had his house raided by police for mocking a politician on the internet. In Norway, police tried to illegally enter my house after I exposed a cult that engaged in what many consider to be grooming of young girls. And that's just Peter Sweden. And last, in Romania, they arrested and now banned the leading candidate from running for president. What's going on in Europe? Well, that's simple. The technocrats have seized power. There's no other way to put it. We're down to the last couple here. So the real threat to democracy right now is the communist EU. Quick primer on Romania. Right winger wins election. Election gets canceled by EU because they blamed Russia manipulating the election through TikTok. New election process begins. EU bans him from running. NATO base is being built to wage the war on Russia. Romanians don't want it. The EU NATO demons don't care. Then they lecture you about democracy from their, high and mighty bullshit. I think that pretty much captures the Romanian stuff, unless there's something else you want to add to it.
Well, if this is Romania, if this is the EU, how are they that much different than the Nazis?
Good question. I would actually like to see somebody from the other side try and answer that.
I mean, okay, you got the Holocaust, but everything else, just like this.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I would love to hear somebody from the other side answer that question.
In prison, his guy running against him. Well, they just threw Georgescu in prison. How are they any different than Putin?
There you go. All right. So just because he's the richest man in the world, and we don't necessarily agree with everything Elon says or does, but that's the same for anybody. But Elon Musk says the United States should exit NATO. Doesn't make sense for America to pay for the defense of Europe. I think that's really simple and easy to understand, right?
Yeah. Someone should just ask, okay, why should we be paying for this? No one can answer the question.
Yeah. So next one up, this is the last one for chapter 1. Then we're going to pivot into some other stuff in chapter 2. But this is a goofy video and it's goofy stuff. But if you just set aside a masculine reaction to this crap, we don't have anything in common with these people. Like, we're from two different worlds. So Mike Lee makes a comment. These are our NATO allies. Time to leave NATO because libs of TikTok puts a fine point on it. Meanwhile, at Paris Fashion Week, So we try to save profanity for chapter 3, and I'm going to try and do my best to stick with that. But WTF, like. I don't know if you got anything to add to that. I think it kind of speaks for itself, but feel free to take a swing at it.
You're a fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insanity, right? So we have a short message from Sawyer Products. We'll be right back with chapter 2.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
All right, so picking up right away with more military stuff, and this is based on some comments from Pete Hegseth that I could not agree more with. The headline is Pete Hegseth drives the stake through climate change driving defense policy. The Department of Defense is abandoning its nearly 2 decades long focus on climate change as a national security issue. In a terse message to CNN, Pentagon spokesman John Ulott said climate zealotry and other woke chimeras on the left are not part of that core mission. And basically, Pete Hegseth was asked further about it, and he said, our mission is to train, be ready, and be lethal. End of story. So hopefully that sticks for a while. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, Jeff, but
their job is to kill people and break things.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So I think we're going to see more and more stuff just continue to come out in the news like this. DOGE uncovers more than $300 million in loans given to children 11 years old or younger. And so this is from 2020 and 2021. So the PPP loans, Paycheck Protection Program, and the EIDL loans, $312 million to borrowers 11 years old or younger. What are the chances that that's a legitimate transfer of money?
Hey, I had a thriving multinational when I was 10, so you know.
You're way ahead of me. Then I was still building tree forts. So here's a good one. Freedom of speech. I think we actually have a couple on this topic. One in Florida, and then this one I think is in Ohio. Police demand residents take down Trump sign. Governmental regulation of the posting of political signs implicates free speech rights under the First Amendment. It's being described as a First Amendment victory, and it involves a town in Ohio abandoning its censorship of political signs on private property. A report from the American Center for Law and Justice explains the fight got its start when police officers in Carrollton, Ohio, showed up at a front door and ordered a resident to remove a political sign from his front yard. It was because of an ordinance that read, political signs may be exhibited not more than 30 days before nor more than 7 days after the date of any election. The residents, confronted with the town's censorship plan, contacted the ACLJ, which has a long history of fighting for constitutional rights. On behalf of our clients, the ACLJ sent a demand letter to the village of Carrollton demanding that it stop enforcing this unconstitutional ordinance and preventing our clients from displaying political signs in their yard. Only 1 day after receiving our letter, the village of Carrollton responded and agreed to meet our demands. A major victory for free speech. I mean, not that I would agree with it, but this is something like the HOA from hell would try to enforce, but an actual city that's funded by our tax dollars.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Unbelievable, right?
Somebody complained about your sign. I don't care.
Yeah. All right. Next one up from far left Politico. Mark Carney to Donald Trump. Canada never, ever will be part of America. Canada's next prime minister uses leadership victory speech to warn Canadians that the U.S. president wants to destroy our way of life. This whole thing has gotten so blown out of proportion, right? So basically, Trump said, help us keep the bad shit out of our country. and we'll keep you under our wing, economically speaking. And if you'd like to, become part of America in some capacity or another, I personally think that a territory would allow them to keep their historical institutions, etc. But they'd have no tariffs to worry about. They'd have the largest military in the world protecting them. But the WEF clearly doesn't want that. I saw countless comments from Canadians say, this guy has never been elected for anything in his entire life, and now he's the head of our country until he decides to hold an election.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't strike me as very fair, that you can put somebody in power who's never been elected for anything, and we'll let that person decide when there's an election. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, each their own, I guess, right? All right. Speaking of screwy stuff with government, CNN Van Jones, Democratic Party is screwed. This is a huge nightmare. So he was part of Obama's cabinet. Fairly short video. I'll play the whole thing.
And then just lastly, Van, in terms of Democrats and where they go from here, this last week we did see them some people try to protest during the president's address, and then House leadership getting onto them, other Democrats calling them out. They still seem to be wandering around trying to figure this out. What's your take?
Can we ask another question? Do I have to talk about my own party? Can we talk about Ukraine or something? No. Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. Somebody like Donald Trump, we thought we'd at least have Hakeem Jeffries in the speaker's chair to hold him back if we didn't have Kamala in there to do the right thing. Listen, the Democratic Party is going through a massive set of internal crises. You have a party that got trapped two ways. One, defending a broken status quo that nobody likes because they thought that Donald Trump was going to make it worse. But when you're defending the status quo, you're going to lose. And then offending most people in the country, calling everybody sexist and racist and transphobic and every other name, and then saying, please follow us. That's not a good strategy, folks. Defending a broken status quo and offending most of the country turns out is not as popular as my party thought it was going to be. And so it's going to take a while for people to get it figured out. I don't.
So, Jeff, I mean, we're none of us at Survival Dispatch are fans of rhinos or Democrats or anything like that. But this guy's not stupid. He's intelligent. He's well-spoken. It is pretty telling, though, when he says, yeah, we're screwed.
Yeah. Well, he's not in charge. He's looking from the outside in. And if he was part of the power structure like he used to be, he would have to defend that. Well, he's not part of the power structure anymore, so he could be honest and go, yeah, we're hosed.
So I don't know about you, but I don't see any course corrections coming whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I see the Democrats and the rhinos doubling down on stuff that people don't want.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we will defy the president's order on no men and women's sports. It's like, really? That's the hill you want to die on? 90% of the country thinks it's bad, and you're going to defend the 10%. They're just
again. I don't see them changing. They're so married to their ideology. How many times have either you, me, or somebody else on SDN said that we have a lot of political theater, and almost on a daily basis, there's some clown putting out some bullshit video. Like last week was Crockett's turn with her and her girls dancing down the hallway and stuff. They're not serious politicians. Yeah. It's all show bullshit, right? All right. So speaking of politics, this one's pretty interesting. This happened today. Good riddance. Crews erasing Black Lives Matter street mural near the White House. So Trump basically said to Miriam Bauer, either you get rid of all these homeless encampments, that BLM garbage, or you're going to get no money at all. Like, you're cut off completely. And she folded up like a house of cards almost instantly. So that picture was taken this morning of them taking that stuff down. All right, next one up. Make work great again. As DOGE makes its cuts, majority say treat government workers same as those in the private sector. 56% support federal workers to submit weekly reports. I don't know if you've seen this or not, Jeff, and I don't think I have one of these videos queued up, but there's all kinds of videos of people bemoaning the fact that it was scary and unjust for Elon Musk to ask for 5 things that they accomplished. Are you fucking kidding me? Pardon my French. But in the private industry, you better show me 5 fucking things you accomplished before noon today, not for the entire week. Are you shitting me? These people are freaking.
As I said earlier, I had a boss when I in CIA. We had to submit. We called it the war report, the weekly activity report.
There you
and
go.
You had to turn it. You had to do it every Friday. Yeah, and this is what I did, and I use it as a motivator. If I'm sitting there on Wednesday and I'm starting to fill out my weekly activity report, and I go, I really don't have much to put in here. I better get off my ass and do something. And you did.
So the reason I mention all of this is because this whole article is predicated on government employees being held to the same standard as private sector employees to be productive. Surprise, surprise. So I'm going to read a little bit more of this. The Trump administration's push to streamline the bureaucracy and boost the productivity of federal employees has struck a nerve among voters. A substantial majority of Americans now believe that federal workers deserve the same treatment as private sector workers, according to the INI TIP poll. The national online poll taken from February 24th to 26th asked 1,434 adults the following question: should federal employees be treated differently than private sector workers in terms of pay, benefits, and job protections? The poll has a margin of error plus or minus 2.6 percentage points. The answer was a resounding no. Of those queried, 65% said no, they should be treated the same. Just 22% answered yes, they should receive more. Another 13% responded not sure. The responses by political affiliation showed this is a nonpartisan issue down the line. Democrats, 63% answered no, while only 25% said yes. Republicans weren't much different. 66% said no, and 24% said yes. Independents, a bit surprisingly, were strongest in their response, with 70% saying no and just 14% giving a yes to the poll. It's, again, the Republicans, Democrats, 2 different sides of the same coin. We are neither at Survival Dispatch. We are lowercase l libertarians, conservative patriots, MAGA, whatever you want to call us. But pretty surprising that with that broad spectrum of people being polled, the responses were virtually identical. They're almost within the margin of error, for crying out loud.
Really are. I'm shocked.
I was shocked too when I read it, which is why I elected to put it in today's situation report. All right, next one up. This is pretty cool. Arkansas students to begin receiving in-school gun safety training. A new law in Arkansas means students enrolled in the state's public schools will begin attending a mandatory gun safety course during the 2025-2026 school year. So you're from Arkansas originally, way back when.
I got my first formal safety training, informal from my grandfather from day one. My first formal safety gun class was at church camp.
See, and people want to make fun of the South. That's a great example why you shouldn't make fun of the South. But all joking aside, there are quite a few videos out there of Asian children in a public school setting assembling and disassembling pistols, rifles, all kinds of firearms, and they've got it down pat, more than the average American probably. Just saying. There's one in particular, I want to say it's maybe North Korea, that stands out, where they all had semi-automatic pistols and they were all disassembling them, putting them back together again in no time. Just as an aside, I don't know why it tweaked me, but a good friend of mine, Denny Chapman, who used to do some content with us at Survival Dispatch before he had to move back to Southern Illinois to tend to family matters. The craziest video, I'm going to text him, try to get a link from him, because y'all got to see this. He disassembles and reassembles a Glock with one hand.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, if anybody remembers the old bumpers that we had on some of our Survival Dispatch videos of a guy shooting an AR off a horseback, ringing steel, that was Denny Chapman. He's a multi-time national champion, all sorts of different classes and disciplines of gun shooting. Super, super guy.
The Israelis, they used to have a Galil assault rifle. in every house.
I believe it.
And for years.
Liberal praises the gunman who was caught outside the White House and calls for more violence. This is 15 seconds. This is in reference to a 27-year-old who was shot and intercepted in close proximity to the White House over the weekend. And somebody went searching for information on him today, and I just kind of caught it on the periphery, Jeff. And this kid does not exist on social media anywhere. How many 27-year-old kids don't exist somewhere on social media?
Oh, the same one who tried to kill
Crooks.
Trump.
It's fishy, right? At the end of the day.
Very.
Anyway, here's the 15 seconds of lunacy.
I heard about the incident in front of the White House. Rest in peace, all the things. But this is the energy. Let's flood the system and see what happens. Like, okay, I'm here for it. All right.
It's always the eyes, and 90% of the time it's a white woman between the ages of 20 and 50. Not doing either this is a direct result of taking SSRIs or not taking enough SSRIs. One of the two. All right, this is the one I alluded to earlier, Jeff, when we were talking USAID funding and stuff, but I don't know who this person is, but they're right on the money here. Want some truth? The Dems are a small political party of social outcasts, mentally ill men, race baiters, communists, feminists, and grifters. They only seemed like a legitimate party because USAID propped up every aspect of their operation. USAID is done, and so are the Dems. Yeah. Comments on that, Jeff? I mean,
well, it's not just USAID though, because you're going to also find it with Department of Education, Department of Housing and Urban Development, any of the hard left-wing government agencies are, I'm sure we will find, are funneling money into leftist NGOs, which are then funneling money back into the Democrats. It's 100%. Just it's a giant washing machine.
Yep, 100%. It's not gonna end. We're gonna find out more and more as this second term unfolds for Trump. All right, next one up, as I mentioned, Florida man wins legal battle against county over fines for hanging pro-Trump banners. So this county fined this guy $60,000 saying he had to take the flag down and Trump's picture down. And he said, no, screw you. And the judge ruled in favor for him at the end of last week and told the county, you've got 24 hours to give him $45,000. And he doesn't have to take down his signs. So at least some of the courts are going in the right direction. All right. I kind of waffled on whether this should be in the second or third chapter tonight. So it's the very last item in chapter 2.
The bridge item between the two.
Yeah. So it is, because you can consider this either the last piece of chapter 2 or the first piece of chapter 3, which is zany, sometimes humorous, not so humorous, crazy shit, whatever in chapter 3. This is insane. How can something like this exist in America? A website called Superfanverse is allowing parents to post photos and videos of their underage kids, allowing adults to subscribe to exclusive content of minors. Subscription prices of $13,200 per year per child. This is 38 seconds. This is insane.
Parents are knowingly selling videos and photos of their children to predators. It's exactly what is happening on these platforms that are allowing adults to subscribe to exclusive content of minors. This is a 13, maybe 14-year-old girl behind me who has a variety of tiers to see photos and videos. And I just want to be clear that these parents know it is not other teenage girls who are buying these photo packages, and everyone who is selling exclusive content of their children online to strangers could be investigated.
Yeah.
This is not right. $825 for 3 months. $3,450 for 6 months, $13,200 for 12 months.
Yeah, that's not a high school kid looking to see what other high school kids are wearing.
Yeah, I mean, the audience is clear who it is.
It's kitty porn.
It's the pedophiles.
Well, and then they're going to use those videos and probably make deep fakes of them.
Yeah, and I can't remember who it was. There was a state government put something out towards the end of last week. I just can't remember which state it was, basically saying that they need to put some legislation in place as it pertains to artificial intelligence generating deep fakes of child porn.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. Anyway. All right. So let's go to the other end of the spectrum here. And we're officially in chapter 3, and it's some funny ha-ha stuff. This video is only 39 seconds long, but it's a compilation of a whole bunch of other videos, and it's super funny.
You know, I found out the hard way the last time that I tried this. Oh, not again. And I haven't seen this done with any other.
Oh, she's doing the Mentos and Coke.
And I just don't think it's going to be as crazy. Not again.
Oh, not again. Oh my God. That's funny shit right there. That's just great. All right. Next one up. More disturbing than this AI video is the fact that if allegations are true, it appears no one's been brought to justice. Not one single adult seems to have been held accountable for any of the horrific events that allegedly occurred at Epstein Island. Will justice be served? And again, this is an AI video.
Oh, God.
So what'll be interesting, Jeff, is if we ever get the truth on this matter, will be interesting to see how accurate this type of AI video is.
Yeah, I think it's exactly why we're probably never going to get the truth on this.
Well said. Well said.
There's probably going to be a lot of Republicans in that pile too.
Oh, absolutely. No question.
One thing they'll have bipartisanship on is keeping the Epstein tape secret.
No kidding. This is not an AI video. It's 1 minute, 25 seconds long. I'm not going to play the whole 1 minute and 25 seconds. But End Wokeness, the account that posts this, is asking, what the fuck did I just watch? And I concur.
Good morning. Would you pray with me? Come, Holy Spirit, into the hearts of all of your beloved children, and kindle within us the fire of your unending and relentless love. May all of my words and our hearts together honor you today, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. But performing gender as a daily task, I would argue, is a learned cultural trait to which we have all been exposed. As understandings of drag have changed throughout history, perhaps drag today could be defined as that which threatens the already fragile and arbitrarily constructed framework for gender performance that is necessary to maintain power dynamics. Conversely, it could also be that from the moment we are born, and perhaps even before that, when families gather to reveal the sex organs of their child, that the drag show begins.
I don't even know what to comment, Jeff. The only reason I put it in there is because I didn't know what the hell to think of it.
Well, I'm totally insane, and I want you to be insane with me.
Okay, I can buy that. That sounds logical. All right. Secretary Noem, we've identified criminal leakers within DHS Gov and are preparing to refer these perpetrators to the Justice for felony prosecutions, face up to 10 years in federal prison. We briefly mentioned this in a prior episode, so I won't bother watching the video. But this next one, back to funny ha-ha here. I hope you know I am this kind of guy. Not many can handle that.
You let the toilet seat up. You're always watching me.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize.
Here.
What's this?
So cranky lately. I figured you've been losing blood.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Because I've been.
The register was a real.
You must have gone to self-checkout.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left.
Looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I thought the breasts were going to be bigger.
Yeah, so did I.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize.
Have I ever told you that I love your cooking?
No.
Then why are you still cooking?
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death,
At night, I wouldn't be doing that.
realize there's nothing left. Because I've been.
What's wrong?
This is really dry.
That's what I've been saying for years.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left.
Be honest with me. What is the real reason why you are not dating right now?
Because my roommate doesn't like the idea of me bringing men home.
For the last time, we're not roommates, we're married.
I didn't know you were in here.
Did you know that rubbing toilet paper on your chest will make your tatas bigger?
What?
Seemed to work for your butt.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left.
Oh my God. So that will absolutely get us a copyright email in no time.
Somebody will get, yeah, he's probably dead.
Yeah. All right. Did libtards hit rock bottom?
Seems like a blatant disrespect for the House, and it wasn't coming from Representative Green. It was coming from the men behind him on the right side who were telling him and yelling, "Sit down." I mean, it felt like I was watching something in a history class of racists yelling at an elderly Black man challenging the president of the United States not to cut medical care for the sick.
Again. All right. And, I'm trying to decide if this would be more impactful if I saw it coming towards me or in my rear view mirror.
I'd be more scared in my rear view, I think.
That's quite a truck.
Yeah.
Somebody put some serious effort into that. Yeah. All right. Assassin Ryan Routh had 18 phones, 3 laptops, and other devices all around the world, but had no job. And our great FBI had no clue. They were watching parents at PTA meetings instead. The Butler shooter is still a ghost. He had 6 cell phones. Who did he talk to?
Yeah.
Great questions.
Very good question.
You know, it'd be interesting to see if we ever get the truth on that.
You'd be able to give. They got phone numbers. You get the PIN registers. They're probably stuck in a database with Carnivore. So,
all right. So this was a recap of Democrat actions last week, not this week. Democrat mayors refused to say if they'd turn illegal aliens over to ICE. Democrats in Congress refused to stand for Laken Riley and a 13-year-old cancer survivor. 198 House Democrats voted against censoring Al Green. Every Senate Democrat voted against protecting female athletes. Yet the left still wonders why they are unpopular with the average American.
Yeah.
Got to be some special kind of stupid there. All right, next one up. Charlie Kirk schools a man dressed as a woman about what is a woman. 54 seconds.
So what is a woman?
Dude, I don't know. That one's hard. I know that's your line. And I think that's hard to say, man. I don't know.
But what
do you think is a woman?
Well, a woman is an adult female with XX chromosomes. It's not difficult, right?
I disagree. I don't think so.
But if you disagree, why? But then what is your alternative?
Oh, I don't know.
So you disagree with you disagree without an alternative?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think that's a fair thing to say.
But you disagree, but you must have some opinion. What is your opinion of what a woman is?
I really don't know. I think it's a gender. I think it's a gender more than a sex. I think sex is female, and then woman is like gender. Yeah. That's what I would say.
A civilization that can't define very basic biological terms and stay close to them is a civilization in moral chaos.
It's like a dog is a canine, but a canine isn't a dog.
I don't know. That one's hard.
No, it went into autoplay mode on me there. Say again, Jeff.
No, that's like saying, my dog is a canine, but canines aren't dogs. No canines are dogs. It's just, it's a reciprocal thing where 2 words that mean the same thing all of a sudden don't mean the same thing.
Yeah, it's stupidity. So pay close attention to this video of Nancy Pelosi. This is last week during the State of the Union. 22 seconds long. I don't. Any ideas from anybody on what the heck is wrong with her in this? All right, so quick snap audience poll here. If you believe that Nancy Pelosi is a lizard person in disguise, put 1 in the comment section. Or if she's just a whack job, put a 2 in the comment section of the live chats. Let's see. So number 1, she's a lizard person in disguise. Number 2, she's just a crackpot. Let's see what the audience says. All right, moving on from there. This is ridiculous stuff, man. Check this out. Reminder that Rabbi Shmuley was grinding his ass on a little kid during one of his unhinged episodes. Do you consider this normal behavior?
What the hell was that?
I don't know what to say. I seriously don't know what to say. I mean, you got anything you want to add to that? I think the guy's a pedophile.
Psychos in all religions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a pedophile. So Rumble mostly won. Some people went 1s and 2s. YouTube. So check this out. Going against the grain got censored on YouTube for saying she shat in her depends. I'm going to prove that, of course. I would say overall, I've got all 8 platforms going in front of me here. The majority were number 1s, minority number 2s, then a handful of 1s and 2s. So consensus is she's an alien. Either that or she lost her dang mind. All right. February border crossings. Biden 2022, 166,000. Biden 2023, 156,000. Biden 2024, 189,000. Trump 2025, 8,300. Remember when Dems insisted that the border bill was needed to secure the building when all it did was codify 5,000 a day being given a short path to citizenship? Unbelievable.
It's the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill this country has ever seen.
Democrats were on their back foot on immigration. Now we are on our front foot.
Look, the president has been very clear. We need that bipartisan border security bill.
By any objective measure, it's strong, tough, and realistic.
I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
It's the toughest, most efficient.
Golly, I do not miss a single person from that administration. Elon Musk, do you support DOGE reducing government waste and frauds? Give me a second here. Hopefully X doesn't go down while I refresh this. I want a current number. Okay, you ready for this? 1,507,496 votes. Do you support DOGE reducing government and waste and fraud? 18.9% said no. 38.8% said yes. 42.3% said super yes. So essentially, you've got 81.1% are in favor of DOGE, and yet the Democrats just keep attacking it. They're just, somebody needs to give them a clue, right? All right. Every Biden presidential order was signed by an autopen due to Biden's failing health, possibly rendering each order null and void. So it's not just all of them except for the letter that he wrote saying he wasn't going to run for the Democrat nomination this past election was signed by autopen by the same guy. Jeff, just speculate on this. Are those legal?
I don't know what happened. I did read where I guess Obama was in Europe and Congress passed some law that he wanted to sign, and he directed his staff to sign it on his behalf using an autopen. And that kind of set the precedence because I don't think anyone challenged it. An autopen isn't one guy. It can be any number of people. It's just a machine that's basically duplicates your signature. There's literally a pen in it, and it writes out. It could have been his wife. It could have been Hunter. It could be the frickin' janitor pushing the button and turning the damn thing on.
Yeah, I wonder why they're making a big deal out of it. Was always the same person, some staffer. I can't remember his name was, but I mean,
maybe he had the keys to the autopen. I don't know.
There's so much evidence now, and we covered it again last night, showing that the 2020 election was completely stolen. You know, you have 15 million votes appear out of nowhere in 2020, and then they all disappear again in 2024. Just that in itself, right? You take Obama, second election, you take Hillary 2016, you take Kamala 2024. They're all between, say, 67, 68, 69 million votes. But we're to believe Joe Biden got 81 million votes the same year that Donald Trump got 76 plus million votes. But then they just disappeared again. We just covered this. I mean, you have to be a special kind of stupid to believe that it was legit. Anyway, TikToker says he wants the military to do what must be done and take Trump out, and whoever does it will be honored. This is a daily occurrence from these sick people, and this is a direct result of unhinged Democrats whipping up this frenzy and, essentially saying, bring the violence, take out Donald Trump. It's just crazy.
I have a message for all of you, my fellow Americans. This is very important, so please consider it and discuss. I'm out here wearing a sign that says, once the military takes out Trump, we must honor them. No veteran left behind. Best benefits. Front and back, that's what my sign says.
I'm going to stop it there just because his audio sucks really bad. Suffice it to say, he's encouraging members of the military to take out Donald Trump. Just a nutcase. All right. Bill Nye the Science Guy and laid off NIH workers are staging a small rally in front of the Lincoln Memorial holding Make America Healthy Again kills science.
What?
Yes. And they're now singing.
People healthy, you kill them.
They are now singing a tune called Science Lights the Way after a few mic issues. Bad Hombre says cringe. I don't know what it was, but the Democrats, every protest they held last week, they were singing Kumbaya crap like this.
Oh, yeah.
Along with us. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh,
God.
light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
I think they should stick to smoking pot.
These are all, you can tell these are all people from the 60s because they sing these old 60s revolutionary hippie songs.
Yeah, exactly. Just anyway, whatever. So much to unwrap here. This is from Donut Operator, by the way. Security guard at a strip mall. Patches that say FAFO. And if you can read this, you're in range, with a picture of a Barrett 50. Pistol with extended magazine. Red accents to match the vest, of course. And 2 tactical lighters. 28 seconds. I actually, the guy in the red vest here, Bob, I said use that term loosely.
Yeah, loosely.
If you think it's a dude, I want you to put a 1 in the chat section. If you think it's a woman, put a 2 in the chat section. And if you're in your 50s and you remember Pat on Saturday Night Live and you think this is a Pat, put a 3 in the chat. So 1 if you think this is a dude, 2 if you think it's a woman, 3 if you think it's a Pat.
Doing it because you came disrespectfully.
I'm fine.
Let's bring the tone down, okay? We can have a man-to-man conversation. Yeah, let's bring it down, Kyle. Kyle, don't bring it
You're
up.
violating federal law, bro.
Can you
And I'm calling you on
I
it.
understand. We know that there's federal law. Just stop saying it. I understand you're trying to educate. Okay, I appreciate that. But can we bring the tone here if we're going to have a conversation?
Fine.
If he doesn't yell, you're not going to yell, right? Can you doing it?
All right. So 1 if it's a dude, 2 if it's a woman, 3 if it's a Pat. Seeing the scores are pretty equal right now. I'm going with number 3. It's a Pat.
Yeah.
All right. Next one up, insane Jasmine Crockett and Hank Johnson suggest Trump and Republicans want to bring back slavery. This is a new low. There is no bottom. I'm not going to play this whole thing.
And as they have decided to go after immigrants and things like that, and they've said, oh, they taking your black jobs. They taking your black jobs. Not really. They are obviously jobs that they want us to go back to, such as work in the fields, all right? Those immigrants that come into our country, they work the fields, something that we ain't done in a long time. And clearly, he is trying to make us go back to the fields.
So all of the ways in which they can.
Yeah, that's about enough of that. The Democrats right now are trying to float her as a potential presidential candidate.
Oh, please go ahead, by all means.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, next one up. I have so many questions. Oops.
What's that, Zach? Just go spin over. There's the doggy.
Oh, so bizarre.
Well, I mean, that's a WTF for you right there. Like,
How did he get in there? How did he not get cut in half when they cut the tree down?
I don't know. Good question. All right, next one up. 15 seconds. So grateful I'm not a brainwashed anti-American liberal piece of shit.
Shit. That looks like East Texas.
Yeah. All right. Back to Jasmine Crockett. Why does she go out of her way to act ratchet and sound stupid? Which, by the way, she went to multiple private schools, extremely high tuitions. Comes from a very wealthy family. This is all an act. That's what we keep saying. This is theater.
How about that? It's 0. And I know people gonna feel away. Listen, all I do is give y'all facts. So you come back to me when you don't get that check and say, Jasmine, you were right. Just like y'all want to get out there and say all kinds of, other stuff. But come back, because you're getting 0. I know these people. I work with these people. These people is not about this life, and they don't care about you.
So she was telling everybody last week that they're not going to get their Social Security checks because Elon Musk stole them. All right, here's a hard-learned lesson. Don't bring a pipe to a plank fight.
Entre.
99. All right. Trans activist TikToker says he wanted to beat up a kid because the kid called him trans. Why are they so violent?
Just came from Winco, and I kid you not, this is the struggles about being trans that cis people do not understand, that I'm literally just living my fucking life. I'm just doing me, looking how the way I'm looking. And this one dude literally called me a tranny, right? And it's this little small black boy. And I was like, whatever. I was like, I don't care. I was like, whatever. And I was just minding my business. And then literally the same fucking kid comes back. And then I'm talking to my partner. And then he's over here like, you got a problem? And I'm like, who are you talking to? I was like, bitch. I'm like, no one got a problem. I'm like, do you got a problem?
Every last one of these people is mentally ill.
And they wonder why no one can take them seriously.
Yeah. So you're going to appreciate this next one, Jeff. This is pretty brilliant.
All right.
Wife's friend says she doesn't press 1 for English because it'll be a rep with an Indian accent and she can't understand it. Instead, she presses 2 for Spanish and then says, oops, I meant English. And the rep helps her because most Spanish reps are bilingual.
Pretty clever.
That is clever indeed. I haven't had a chance to try that yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to try that at some point here. All right. Tulsi Gabbard reveals the Biden admin knowingly let hundreds of illegal aliens with ties to terrorist organizations like ISIS onto the streets of our country. Treason.
You were at the border yesterday. Fabulous. Yes. With the vice president, the secretary of defense. Now, you revealed that the Biden administration, I didn't believe this headline, that they deported only 8 out of 100 illegals with ties to ISIS. That can't be. I mean, I actually can't even believe that's true. 8 out of 100?
I had the same doubts that you had when I got this information from our National Counterterrorism Center, because it is inconceivable to me to have a commander-in-chief and a president who would knowingly return those who are either known or suspected terrorists or those who had very close ties with known or suspected terrorists back onto our streets in our country. But unfortunately, it's exactly what happened. There were over 400 illegal immigrants who came from Central Asia.
So we don't have to play the rest of it to get the gist of it. I'm not surprised. Are you surprised, Jeff? This doesn't surprise me at all.
I'm not.
That
No.
New York just let them go free. Not at all. All right, next one up. Yeah, exactly. Scientists say cockroach milk is 4 times more nutritious than cow's milk and could be used as a new superfood for millennials and Gen Zers.
There's only one problem.
Hard pass on that.
Cockroaches don't lactate. They're not mammals.
Just insane, Jeff. This liberal psychopath who's not only calling for the assassination of President Trump, but is calling to have a GoFundMe set up for the killer to make sure he has the best commissary in prison available. Look at the eyes.
I fear
Yeah, I was
somebody.
about to say it's all about the eyes.
Somebody's got to do it. And we need to set up a GoFundMe for whoever does it to make sure they have the absolute best commissary in there. Top-notch noodles. Top-notch deodorant and shampoo. And hypothetically, if you don't make it after you do it, your kids will go to the top universities with that GoFundMe we'll set up for you.
These people are mentally ill, every last one of them. All right. Have you ever seen someone get scope bite from a handgun slide? If not, here you go. This is pretty funny.
Okay.
Just fast forward in a bit here.
Bora, não limpa a mão, não. Bota o vermelhinho lá no.
Ai, furei minha testa.
You see the pool of blood blower already?
Oh, yeah. I saw a girl do that with she was shooting a 44 Magnum revolver, and it bucked back, and the hammer hit her right in the forehead.
Golly. All right. And this one's from our buddy Velcro, who doesn't love a good dog video.
Who did this?
Who did this mess? Cody, did you make this mess?
They all say him.
Who did this?
Who did this? Bliss. Who did this? Who did this? Bliss.
Who did?
Like a pointer.
What is this?
Oh my God.
Who did this? Who did this?
Who made all this mess? You did it.
You just ate an entire chicken farm. A whole chicken. Do you have any idea what you've done? It was $20. What?
Oh, Elf on the Shelf.
That was a good one for sure.
We had Dalmatians that when they would get in the trash and you'd come home, they would sit there and just smiling, and you knew immediately who did it.
That's
Guilty.
too funny. All right, I had to watch this. You guys have to watch this. Those are the rules. I may shorten it up a little bit, but I had to watch it. You have to watch it. Oops. All right, here we go.
That's a big. She won't. We're both out here. They out of here. Ooh, they watching. Watch out, watch out, watch out. They gotta catch her. They gotta catch her. They gotta be the police. The police. They got the police right there. Police right there.
All right. That's the end of that.
Okay. I take the shirt off. You know, what's the point?
I have no idea. All right. So a battle over election administration is brewing in Arizona's largest county. In 2024, the voters of Maricopa County sent a clear message. They want leaders who will implement efficient and trustworthy election reforms. And your governor just shut it down. What do you have to say about that, Jeff, other than just consolidating power?
Yeah, they basically wanted to replicate Florida's election law so they'd have results on election night. She vetoed it.
Unreal.
She a bitch.
All right. And there's just a fag being a fag. President Trump says we are to call people fags and retards from now on. So I didn't create this meme. All right. I'm not going to clap. I wouldn't expect you to clap for anything Trump says. Well, I'm not going to ever, even if a kid has cancer. True story right there. Huh? All right.
Oh, I love this.
If someone gave you $500,000 a day starting from when Jesus was born until now, you still wouldn't have as much money as Elon Musk. He's not interested in the $18.74 in your checking account. Sit down and shut up. All right. Common trait of models. They're good looking. Common trait of surgeons. They have good hand dexterity. Common trait of singers. They have good vocal abilities. Common trait of soccer players. They're all very athletic. Common trait of politicians. They are largely all useless, narcissistic social parasites.
Yeah.
Can confirm. From Sank, I told the left that Trump would recalibrate when something he's done gets unpopular. They said he would never do that. Yet today, he scaled DOGE back because it became unpopular. I told the right that DOGE was going to be unpopular, but they didn't believe it either. Retard finder. Sank, send me your latest selfie. I need it for something. The ultimate insult is when retard finder shows up on your profile on X. Any guess what those two signs are, Jeff?
No, the walk to the podium. One is out the door. What's the other one's I can't tell where they are. So one's leaving the building.
So reportedly, these are the types of instructions that staffers had to put out for Biden as he made his way towards the stage. Unbelievable, huh? Unbelievable. Hate-filled man snatches hijab off teen's head in New York City. You don't need to be wearing that here. Whatever. Oh, look, retard finder right there. Found another one. And Justine Trudeau's in a dress there. All right. Trump to Amy Coney Barrett. When did you transition?
Oh, shit.
Brutal. I give Elon Musk and DOGE my permission to audit anyone receiving my tax dollars. Yours truly, U.S. citizen. Second the motion. When I used to see a rainbow as a kid, when I see a rainbow now.
Yeah.
All right. A Democrat rep, Rashida Tlaib, held up a sign during Trump's speech demanding that Trump start paying your taxes. In 2014, Rep. Tlaib was forced to pay back more than $4,500 after she was caught underpaying property taxes on a rental property for 6 years. They always accuse Trump of what they themselves do. All right. Well, it's Epstein files not released day again.
Yeah.
Republicans will be exposed by this too, in reference to Epstein. Good. We shall see. How dare Trump call us lunatics when we're acting like lunatics? Pretty much. Biden's executive orders are not valid because he didn't sign them himself. Biden's executive orders are invalid because he was not legitimately president. They're both true. Oh, I didn't even know you could do this until I came across this. So apparently you can ask Grok to be vulgar. What's your vulgar take on Justine Trudeau crying in a press conference recently? All right, here's my unfiltered vulgar take. Justine Trudeau bawling his eyes out at the press conference is the most pathetic dickless display I've seen in a while. This whiny little bitch has spent years fucking over Canada, tanking the economy, shitting on free speech, and sucking globalist cock like it's his day job, only to now play the sob story card like some sniveling pussy when the heat's on. Crocodile tears from a spineless twat who froze bank accounts, kissed authoritarian ass during COVID, and now wants pity as Trump's tariffs ram him up the backside. Boo fucking who, you Castro-looking cunt. Maybe if you'd grown up there instead of prancing around in blackface and socks, Canadians wouldn't be such a goddamn mess. Cry harder, you soggy prick.
Okay.
Cannot confirm whether that's legit or not. All right. Yeah, Hunter Biden, did you catch this? Nobody's buying his art now. That it,
Buy my stuff, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
He needs a charity. No one uses the word retard to talk to people with special needs. That would be retarded. They use the word retard to talk about retards. That's about it. Americans, Epstein files, and there's Pam Bondi. Yep. Those who support designated terrorist organizations, including Hamas, threaten our national security. The United States has zero tolerance for foreign visitors who support terrorists. This is Rubio, by the way. Violators of U.S. law, including international students, face visa denial or revocation and deportation. The first one was actually kicked out last week. And there you go. Gulf of Mexico on the left, Gulf of America on the right.
Yeah.
Trump effect. Siemens announces $285 million investment in U.S. manufacturing. It's a daily occurrence, one after another. And there's Vance the night away. So I don't know if you caught this or not, Jeff, but there's a thing going on right now where they're putting JD Vance's face on anything and everything you can imagine, and it is funny. But yes, Vance the night away. House Oversight Project finds the Biden presidency was almost entirely run by autopen signature. We gathered every document we could find with Biden's signature. Over the course of his presidency, all used the same autopen signature, except for the announcement that the former president was dropping out of the race last year. Here's the autopen signature. This is criminal. The Biden presidency didn't have a real president. People should go to jail for this.
Yeah.
Amen to that. That was Father and Sunday at MSNBC last week. The one where they made crazy Maxine Waters look like Frankenstein was even better. If you don't hang them this time, they'll just keep doing it. True story. Doge for dummies. Shoot the dog.
Yeah.
All right. There's another Vance one coming up from Tim the Toolman Taylor. Norm. All right. South Africa is being terrible. Plus 2 longtime farmers in the country. They are confiscating their land and farms, and much worse than that. A bad place to be right now. And we are stopping all federal funding. To go a step further, any farmer with family from South Africa seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited into the United States of America with a rapid pathway to citizenship. This process will begin immediately. Within 24 hours, there were 10,000 Boer, Afrikaners, whatever they go by these days. Yeah. That guy just said he had gay sex with Obama. Barack or Michelle? Oh my God. Is the evil orange man in the room with us now?
Yeah.
They're TDS. Nearly 1 million people speak little or no English in England. They're done. You must be 55 inches tall to start World War III.
Yeah.
Pam Bondi, you have until Monday. I actually have to go check up on that and see if Retard Finder hit her or not. Buddy, that's a quick way to lose a ton of your followers. Retard Finder. I'm a retard finder. No one is off limits. This isn't one-sided. They just all seem to be in the left. There are always exceptions. This is go download the sit rep for that one. It's some crazy transgender bullshit. The official Jeffrey Epstein pedophile arrest counter. Yep. Remember when you said the files were sitting on your desk?
Yeah, no shit.
Fact, prison inmates do more to stop pedophilia than our own government.
Boy, that's true. They don't do well in prison.
Yeah. I want you to release the Epstein files. Things I'll never see in my life. Dragons, dinosaurs, unicorns, Epstein's client list. Corporate needs you to find the difference between this picture and this picture. They're the same.
Yeah.
Before and after. That was actually one of my favorite ones. Fucking Bill Barr. All right. Now that we know climate change is a scam, can we bring back cars that people can fix themselves in the driveway? That was me in younger years.
Me
all right.
too.
And there's your picture, by the way, of your autopen.
The autopen.
So people can see it, what it looks like. You really thought they would release the full list? Yeah. Americans right now, Democrats right now. And this one here from our wonderful school system where we don't teach kids to learn by rote. No more vinegar sauce. We apologize. Nice spelling, huh?
Yeah.
Good spelling there. All right. So we are in the home stretch now. Homework. What can you all do in light of the main topic tonight, which was United States potentially pulling out of NATO? Can't happen soon enough. I have 3 simple points. Then we'll go to Jeff. Number 1, vocally support Trump's anti-war agenda. Support anti-war candidates at the polls in the midterms. Write to your congressional reps, letting them know you support Trump's anti-war agenda. There's no upside to us getting involved in any wars at this particular point in time. So
no, I agree with you. Just let your opinion be known to your elected officials so that they won't think that, okay, if I support his anti-war agenda, it's going to come back to bite me in the ass. If they get 5-to-1 responses from people saying we don't want it either, it'll probably go away.
Yeah. It's funny. Maybe it's just a part of getting older, but I never really saw our side of the equation, patriotic Americans, being the anti-war crowd. I didn't have that on my bingo card for 2025.
No, because we've always been the strong defense. The problem when you have a strong defense is some idiot somewhere wants to use it.
True story. True story. All right. A quick reminder, patreon.com/survival dispatch, $9.99 a month. Sign up as an insider. You get our daily situation report. It has links to everything that you see on our show. You get an invite to our private Signal chat, and you get some, other stuff, but those would be the 2 big ones. We appreciate the support very, very much. So our conflicted question of the night, here is the scenario. Imagine a small coastal town in Oregon, USA, where a series of unusually strong storms driven by a shifting jet stream have battered the area for weeks. The storms have caused widespread power outages, flooded key roads, and disrupted supply chains, leaving grocery stores with dwindling stocks. The local government has issued evacuation warnings due to the risk of a nearby river overflowing, but many residents are choosing to stay, either because they can't afford to leave or because they distrust local officials' advice. Cell service is spotty, and the nearest major city is a 4-hour drive under normal conditions, now inaccessible due to mudslides. In a situation where storms cut off your town from outside help with no power, limited food, and flooded roads, what's the most critical skill or resource you'd need to ride it out for 2 weeks, and how would you secure it ahead of time? I'll go to you first, Jeff.
Most secure, that's, because if you're on low ground, you got to get to high ground. But if you're on higher ground, you got to make sure you're not in an area that's going to be part of a mudslide. But in a storm like that, I don't know if it's summer or winter, but it's Oregon, so they're pretty much the same thing. You need to make sure you have food, water, and self-defense, but then a shelter, some sort of resilient shelter, so you can stay warm and dry. You can put up with a lot when you're miserable, as long as you're not freezing to death in the process. You can eat bland food, you can eat crappy stale water or drink crappy stale water, but you got to have food, water, and you got to be dry, and you got to have shelter, and you got to have defense.
Yeah,
so
that
would be mine.
No, and that covers it all, right? They say you can go 3 days without water. Maybe not, because a lot of times by the time you get 2 days into not having water, your brain doesn't function right. You don't make the best decisions after
It's raining,
48
you just
hours.
take a bucket outside. So
Yeah. So, but no, but you hit on all the important stuff like food, water, shelter, and an ability to defend yourself. I would agree wholeheartedly with those things. And if, you know, you're in a low-lying area, that shelter piece could get more difficult, right? You don't want to be buried in a mudslide or anything like that. But I would say what I always say when I get asked questions like this, you should be prepping for the thing that's most likely to happen in the geography that you live. So in other words, if you live here in Florida, you should be prepping for hurricanes. What does that mean? You should be stacking up on water. You should be stacking up on freeze-dried food, canned food. You should be stacking up on propane. You should have a propane generator for a whole bunch of reasons. I am not giving you any type of specific advice here, but I can tell you that I will run a propane generator in our laundry room with the door to the house closed and the window open. And that allows us to recharge our batteries. We have over 20,000 watt hours worth of battery backups. We run for like an hour, hour and a half in the morning on propane, an hour, hour and a half on propane at night. And typically one propane tank gets us through 2 days to charge our batteries up. And there's a reason for that. When we got smoked by Hurricane Charlie, it was next to impossible to buy a generator anywhere. So what people were doing is they were taking used lawnmowers that they bought off Craigslist for $20, and they would come up to your house at night and they would start the lawnmower, turn your generator off and walk away with it. And if people woke up, they'd be, oh yeah, generator's still running. And then they wake up in the morning, there's no power, and they'd look outside and here's this garbage lawnmower in place of their generator out there. So if you get a propane generator, which doesn't put off the carbon monoxide like a gas burning generator, it does, just not to the same extent. You can run it in a room that's ventilated, no problem at all. I'm not saying you should stay in the room, but that's how we run it. And that way we can keep our stuff and protect it. But again, if you live, say, somewhere in the Northeast, you should probably be preparing for power outages during ice storms, snowstorms, which is even worse than when we don't have electricity down here. If you're living in North Texas, you should be prepared to handle hail and tornadoes. Those are the two big things that affect us the most there. So at the end of the day, it always comes back to basics, right? Food, water, shelter, you got to have. You have to be able to defend yourself. And the best way to do this is like eating an elephant, just do it one bite at a time.
Yep.
Even if you don't have a lot of disposable income and you go to the grocery, grab an extra case of water and stack it up in a closet, spare bedroom, whatever. You'll be pretty thankful to have it if and when the shit hits the fan. Of all the hurricanes I've been through, Jeff, Hurricane Matthew was the only one that left us with no water. And let me tell you something, having no power for several weeks, it sucks. We get by, like we have generators and batteries. Having no water for 3 weeks is absolutely brutal, because now you're into problems like, how do you flush a toilet?
Yeah.
You know, it's much bigger than it seems. So actually that's my final piece of advice is go to Amazon, get yourself a water bob. You know, crazy thing is a year ago, they were about $24. Now I think they're about $35-40, but it's 100-gallon bladder that you put in your tub. How much, Jeff?
I have 2 of them.
Yeah, we have 2 as well. They're 100 gallons on average. At least the ones we have are 100 gallons, and it's basically a big plastic bladder. So before the storm comes in, fill it up in your bathtub, and then they have hand pumps on them. And it's great if you have to, you know, flush the commode or get cleaned up, hygienic, whatever. But I'm telling you, no water really, really sucks. And it's not just
13,000-gallon swimming pool. So that's my toilet flushing, clothes washing, take kind of a wet bath kind of thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we had a saltwater pool, one of our previous houses, and it was great when the power would go out and everything. We could go in the pool and get cleaned up. But I'm telling you, no water really, really sucks. Been there, done that. But
we got chlorine, but we have chlorine too. So we have chlorine tablets, which you can shave off and use to sanitize water if you had to.
That's right. Yeah, you can. Somebody told me, I'm trying to remember who it was now, that when you buy chlorine off the shelf, whether you crack the container open or not, liquid chlorine, that its efficacy is greatly diminished after 6 months or so. It's still got some oomph to it, but it's really diminished. and that the best thing to do is actually do what you said, and which is get the chlorine tablets for your pool, which if you had to use it to sanitize water, it doesn't taste great, but it won't kill you if you don't put too much in it, but it will stop you from getting anything bacterial or viral.
Ideally, you want to get the dry, if you can find the dry chlorine that does not have cyuranic acid.
Gotcha.
You're better off. So that's a stabilizer. I mean, it's all the tablets.
Okay.
But you don't want to drink it if you don't have to.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll be back at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night, just like every other day of the week between now and then. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Enjoy the final video. God bless America.
Adios.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
The time has come for the world to move in a new direction.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
The affirmative task we have now, create a new world order.
Washington was controlled by a sinister group of radical left Marxists, warmongers, and corrupt special interests who drained our wealth, attacked our liberties, obliterated our borders, and sucked our country dry. Not any longer.